everybody at home, stick around. You're going to hear from a pretty familiar celebrity historian talking all about Native American Heritage Month right after this break. Well, look in your pocket for the newest quarters now featuring Zitkála-Šá, just in time for Native American Heritage Month in November. She was born in Dakota Territory and went on to become a writer and composer who fought for Native American rights to American citizenship. Here to share more about her story in these new quarters is celebrity historian Raffi Andonian. Good morning.
Good morning. What a time to be here for Native American Heritage Month, as you point out. And I got the quarters right here with me.
Oh, beautiful.
There she is on the lower right, Zitkála-Šá. And see, they're just quarters. There's a head side with George Washington and some of the women honored in this series, including, of course, her with the latest quarter, as you mentioned, the brand new one just in time.
Very exciting. Okay, so walk us through who really was Zitkála-Šá?
Well, as you mentioned, she's from Dakota Territory, specifically the Yankton Sioux Reservation is where she was born. And throughout her life, there was a duality that she was always working with. So, for example, she was born to a German-American father and, of course, a tribal mother. But the father wasn't really in the picture, so she really identified more with her Indian heritage with the Yankton Sioux. So she went on to, fight for rights, as you said. Now, that duality comes into play in other places. For example, at a young age, she went to an American Indian boarding school. And when she went to that boarding school, she actually was not very happy because of the fact that there was a lot of forced assimilation, which was common at the Indian boarding schools. However, what that did do for her is provide her an education that helped her understand how to navigate the Anglo world and to be able to write for them. So that led to things like writing for the Atlantic Monthly to advocate for Native American rights, or writing short stories to capture the Lakota languages, oral traditions in these different stories. She even went to the New England Music Conservatory, learned formally how to play violin and other music forms, and played for President McKinley. And that served her very well because she went on to write, for example, the first opera ever composed by a Native American. It's called the Sundance. And initially, it was being performed across Utah, where her and her then husband had moved. And it was trying to capture a spiritual dance that had been outlawed by the federal government. So it was a way for her to connect with the culture and share it with others as well. So that artistic ability and development of education and understanding how to navigate the Anglo world allowed her to communicate in both sides. And it culminates when she ends up moving to Washington, D.C. in the 19-teens or into the 1920s. Remember, this is a time when there's discussion of the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote. It's a great time to be in D.C. And she and her husband worked for a local Indian rights civil rights organization, and when they do so, she starts publishing again, and that helps eventually to contribute to the 1924 Indian Citizenship Act, a century ago, which was the first time that Native Americans were able to get citizenship across tribes, regardless of tribal affiliation, and do so as both tribal members and U.S. citizens. You didn't have to pick one or the other anymore. Now you could do both. So there's that duality again. And so nobody better to capture that than Zitkála-Šá, which is really fascinating. Now, she went on with her husband to establish another Indian rights organization. It was called the Council for American Indians. And eventually, because of her long life and because of her impactful life and her husband's World War I service, she is buried in Arlington National Cemetery, believe it or not, outside of D.C. and in a national cemetery, honored and now honored with the U.S. quarter like we're talking about right here in my hands and as you've been seeing on your screen.
Yes, and oh my gosh, those quarters are beautiful. Can you share a little bit more about what the image on the quarter really means, the symbolism behind that?
Of course. So you have on there, she is dressed in the traditional Yankton Sioux dress. She is holding a book because of the fact that she was obviously a writer, a scholar. That's really what helped shape her advocacy. You look over her head, you see the sun. And that sun, of course, represents the opera that she co-wrote, the Sundance, as I mentioned. And then, if you look in front of the sun, you see a cardinal. That is supposed to represent what her name means. Zitkála-Šá means red bird in the Lakota Sioux language. And then beneath that, you see the series of diamonds, and that is from a traditional pattern found in the Yankton Sioux culture to represent her heritage as well. So multiple symbols all crammed into the quarter. And I want to say real quick, the value of that is really tremendous, because what you're seeing there on screen, there she is on the same platform as George Washington. And you think about the value of money. It literally has money. It's accessible in your pocket. And of course, money literally has value. And for centuries, we have, not just in the United States, but throughout the world, put national heroes on coinage, on currency. So it's a long tradition. But in the United States, this is the first time that we have an entire coin series dedicated exclusively to American women. She's the 15th one in a 4-year series, the most current one, as we mentioned. But what I want you to think about is how she's on the same platform as George Washington, who's on the head side. And what that means is that money is where nations honor their heroes. And here she is on the same platform.
I just love this. What an inspiring story. Thank you so much for sharing this with us this morning.
Of course. Thank you all very much. Now check it out. Again, accessible history in your pocket.
Yes, absolutely. How can our viewers at home find out more information about you, our celebrity historian?
Me? You can find me. You go to celebrityhistorian.com, or on my Instagram, it's celebrity_historian. You can follow me there. Now, if you also want to learn more about her, where I would start is usmint.gov, which is where you find the quarters. Of course, you can find them, circulating in your pocket, but if you want to go specifically and check them out and get one directly from the U.S. Mint, like I do here, uncirculated copy, you can do that as well. So you can learn that at usmint.gov for her, me, celebrityhistorian.com, where you find all the stuff, including the socials. So I want to emphasize that, when you're learning about these figures, this is exactly why it's so important to have people like this accessible in our pockets, because here we are talking about it on television, of course, and now for others perhaps to go on and to learn more about it beyond what I captured here in a few minutes, because of the fact it's circulating in our pockets, and it causes us to be able to take a look at a more complete and full history, and of course regional history from the Dakota Territory and going on across the nation. And that's what the power of this stuff means.
Yes, beautifully put. Thank you so much, Raffi. We love having you join us.
Thank you.
Yes, we appreciate it.